What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond the Bucket Show. We've got another special podcast for you today. So many people have been asking me lately how to be a sports entrepreneur. I think I'm going to try to change or add a word to the lexicon called sportstrepreneur. My first sports venture, Top Flight Elite Basketball, or actually Top Flight Sports, which started before Top Flight Elite Basketball, is turning 10 years old this coming month. And it's just a little bit of time for me to reflect and see how we got to this point 10 years later. And hopefully I can help out somebody else that is kind of going through the business of sports and trying to be a sports entrepreneur. And I just wanted to share my insights on kind of how that happened. You know, pre-COVID, we had 40 teams last year throughout our program. And to get to where we got to when we had very minimal teams early on, to have 40 teams last year, and we were on pace to do the same thing this year before COVID hit, and then kind of had to cancel everything. But it's just an amazing experience that I've had, all the people in our team have had to get to this point. And I think it's my duty to help other people figure out their way as far as becoming a sports entrepreneur. And I just had a whole lot of thoughts on it recently because that 10-year anniversary is coming up here. We had our first camp October 2010 for Top Flight Sports, and we were so happy to have 19 kids at that time. We always, as the story gets older, you always embellish a little bit, so we'd say it was 20 kids, but it was honestly 19 kids. We were so excited to have those kids come through our program. And so this podcast here is about how to be a sportstrepreneur. Like I said, I'm trying to add that to the lexicon, but I'm going to give anybody that wants to know how to do it or wants to know kind of how our story was. That's really what I'm going to explain here. But there's a couple different things that I want to talk about. It's actually 5 different things that you're going to need if you want to be a sportstrepreneur. The one is have a clear vision. If you like a particular sport, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, field hockey, volleyball, you name it, you have to identify what you're passionate about. And at an early age, I knew what I wanted to do. So even in high school, I told my mom I wanted to own a sports academy. And the reason being was sports was the only thing that allowed me to, feel alive. I didn't really care for school that much as I was growing up. I didn't really care for, electronics or anything like that. I only liked sports. And the biggest thing that could be taken away from me was sports. If I didn't get good enough grades, and I was an average student throughout, my elementary, middle school, and high school years until I got to college, I was an average student. So if I didn't do what I needed to do in the classroom, my mom would take away sports. And that was the biggest thing for me. So have a clear vision, and what do you like to do? So I knew what I wanted to do at an early age, and I had an end goal in sight, get this sports academy. So I knew what I wanted. I knew exactly the sport that I wanted. I love basketball, even though I played baseball and football, but basketball was my thing. And then, as you're going along with that clear vision, you're going to have to know that you're going to have to change and switch and alter your plans at any moment, because things change. And as if COVID is any indicator, you have to be able to change and adapt just like that. And if you don't, you're going to get left behind. And so anybody that was thinking that there was going to be a season in January for their respective club sport or their business, you had to immediately change and switch. Okay, what is the next thing? You got to go to Zoom. Then you got to do, follow all the CDC guidelines and figure out things. But be ready to change and alter your plans. I would say the biggest thing for any sports entrepreneur, anybody that wants to take a challenge with something new, is foundation is everything. So if you don't have the original foundation to start your process, it's not going to work. And my foundation was deep rooted. I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was 14 years old, one of my friends, his name was Anthony, he was selling candy through the Teen Leaders of America. And, he was able to, go to 7-Eleven and buy things because he had money. And, if you wanted money, you had to actually go out there and work. So one of my first jobs, or actually my first job, and my mom didn't want me to do it. I'm glad she did. She allowed me to go out there and sell candy door to door, trying to make some money to, do some things that I wanted to do at that time, because there was really no way to make money at age 14 unless your parents or relatives or somebody was going to give it to you. And I took a leap out at 14. I told my mom, hey, I want to get this job. And we would go out all day on Saturdays and Sundays, and I would go door to door peddling candy for $5. And, the person who would drop us off would get $2.50 and we would get $2.50. So the more you sold, the more you got. And that was my first introductory to sales and, going to earn money. And that first time when you get your money and they would give it cash, you can go to the card shop and buy that pack of trading cards, or go to 7-Eleven, or go to Marshall's or Ross and buy a new outfit because now you had some money. That was my first thing that was like, okay, you can do something to earn you money. The second thing that I did when I was young was my first job, my first real job that, you actually get a paycheck. I was 16 years old. My mom went to the Winchester Mystery House to apply for me a job. I wasn't even there. She basically got me this job as a tour guide, and I wasn't even present. So she said, yep, you got a job, because she had just bought me a car. It was a 1982 BMW. So I was born in that same year, and the car was the same age as me, 16 years old at the time. So she got me this job, and I had to learn this script. The script is like a full book, because you're given an hour and 15-minute tour. And the biggest thing with that was you had infants all the way to 90-year-olds on this tour. And you had to be able to sell the Winchester Mystery House to all ages. And that was such a difficult task at that time. They really put you through a rigorous training. You had to know that book inside and out. Like, I can tell you right now, the script, like the beginning script was, welcome to the Winchester Mystery House. My name is Chris. I'll be your tour guide through Mrs. Winchester's wonderful but bizarre 140-room Victorian mansion. The Winchester Mystery House is on the National Registry of Historic Landmarks. It is also a California landmark and San Jose City landmark number 868. I'm not going to bore you guys and continue with that little deal there, but I still remember it. And it was not only just the training that they gave you, but it gave you confidence to speak in front of anybody. And now I don't really have a problem speaking in front of 5 people, 2 people, 30 people, 500, 5,000, even 50,000 people. I probably wouldn't have an issue with it if I was able to do it once, because I got so many reps doing that. I mean, you would do 6 tours a day at hour 15 in minutes. You're there 7-8 hours in a day, and you're giving that many tours throughout the weekend. And so that showed me how to service or sell yourself, and be able to captivate a large audience. And then the third job that I got after that, because look, I didn't want to be a tour guide. I definitely didn't want to go door to door selling candy. I knew what I liked. I really liked sneakers. And still to this day, I love sneakers. So I worked at Champ Sports. That gave me the gear that I wanted to look fly at high school. It also gave me some money in my pocket, and then I can get any shoes that I wanted. Because I worked there, you get 30% off, and it's like, this is a win-win-win. From there, I would sell some of the sneakers that I got. I would drop the price a little bit, because so if it was $100 sneaker that I got it for, it's 30% off, so it's $70. I sell them for $90. I'm making $20 for these sneakers that, you know, everybody else would pay $100 for, right? Or $107 with the tax. So at that time, so those were the building blocks that I needed to understand that, look, you gotta find out what you like, and then you have to basically reverse engineer where you want to go. So I knew I wanted to have nice things. So what are you gonna do? This is how you do it. From there, in high school or right after high school, before college, I got a job at the Campbell Recreation. I was reffing elementary school basketball from actually kindergarten through, you know, seventh grade. And my mentor, John Arugio, taught me how to ref. He would basically stand right behind me and move me to where I needed to be in position so I could see the play. He also allowed me and some of our other friends to coach some of those teams that didn't have volunteer coaches. So we were getting paid to do something that we liked. We worked as referees and officials, and then we would also coach some of the teams that needed extra teams. So now I'm getting reps in at an early age, and you just don't know that that foundation is continually being built. From there, I got the opportunity to work for the camps at the city of Campbell that summer, because if you did a good job, you know, John wants to hire people. In that, my first summer out of high school, I was working the camps, and you know, I was like fourth or fifth in the totem pole, and just learning from some of the people that were a little bit older. But you start getting reps. By the time I was done with college, that was my college job for, you know, 5 years actually, because I came back that fifth year after graduation and worked that summer. So I was running the basketball camps, and I could put this on my resume at, you know, 22, 23 years old, that I was the director of basketball camps for the city of Campbell. So this kind of led to me going on with coaching. I first started coaching at my old high school as an assistant coach. I did that while I was in college, coming home for winter break, because our season was over. Come home for winter break, coach for, you know, for that 3-4 weeks, go back to school, and, you know, then you coach in the summer at the camps, start building that, you know, building that base. And then I eventually was the JV head coach at Delmar High School. I started reffing high school basketball. I started reffing NJV basketball. So I'm just around the game all the time. So all these building blocks, and like I mentioned, foundation is going to be everything. You start building, you build. And so the first few jobs that I had me in an entrepreneurial mindset. The reps that I was getting from officiating little kids games got me a job later on to reffing high school games. And that the reps you got from coaching little kids gave you the reps you needed to coach at the high school level as an assistant. And then you do that for a couple of years, and then you get a head coaching job. So that was kind of my path before this actual business, that this entrepreneurial sports business, Top Flight, came to mind. So during the time I was a JV coach, I wanted to put together a program called Top Flight. I knew I wanted that name since I was in college, and there, you know, I would be sketching in some of my classes, logos and different things like that. So I started just putting the name out there. So I had to figure out, and I was very, very curious, how do you start this business? You don't have any revenue coming in, but what are the steps that you need to take? So Top Flight Sports was initiated, filed for a fictitious business name, and it's all online. The good thing is, any information that you want to get out there in the world, you can find. It's really at your fingertips. But I was living with Nate Anderson at the time, and he is the baseball coach at Oak Grove. We were in a master's program, and I'll get to that in just a second, because that will be something that I talk about later. You got to do some things that you have to do in order for you to do what you want to do later on. But back to the initiation of the organization, go file a fictitious business name, get a business in the business, file for your business license, and figure it out. I started training some kids, or I actually started training one kid. This kid was on an AAU team that I was coaching. He wanted some private training. I said, I can do that. I really had no clue on what that was, but I just started training him one-on-one. And I would train him 2-3 times a week, and we'd meet up at the park. I didn't even have a gym, and sometimes I would be able to get the gym at Del Mar, because I was coaching there, but it wasn't on the books. It was like, hey, is anybody in the gym? Can we get in there on the weekends? And we just kind of did what we needed to do. But that one kid turned into 2 kids, and 2 kids turned into 4 kids, 4 kids turned into 6 kids, and before you know it, I'm working out all his friends, and I'm busy, and I'm starting to build a small name for myself in the community. And then you start getting more kids. And at that time, I was working with another organization, and the other organization was already established. They had been doing it for so many years, and I had so many ideas that I wanted to do. Like, what does cool look like, right? As far as a kid, I went to college up in Oregon, so the biggest thing was Oregon Ducks. They had all this really cool stuff, and they made it everything centered around how cool it was. And that's why, Oregon's athletics have changed over the last, 15 years, because they made it so cool to be an Oregon Duck, the different colorways. So what is the best color that I can think of that makes it pop? Red. I knew red popped, red, black. I loved it. I mean, because the Bulls back in the 90s, that was a team. Jordan and the Bulls, that was a team. So let's go red and black. That was my whole marketing strategy. And then you start brainstorming with your friends. What's cool, and just trying to put that out there. And as that was happening, the kids were like, well, we want you to coach. So I came to a crossroads with the other organization, and I probably would have stayed with the other organization had they let me have some more autonomy. They always wanted to hold me back in a lot of ways, and I don't mind that, because it allowed me to stretch my rings and grow. And I had to have a conversation with them and say, hey, I think I can do it my own, and I appreciate the opportunity, but I just want to try it on my own. And there's nothing wrong with people spreading their rings. Like, I think back to my time as a high school basketball coach, or even as a club director for Top Flight. So many of the coaches that have been in our program, Valley Christian included, are now head coaches at their own respective high schools. And that for me is one of the biggest things. Like, I don't ever want to hold anybody back in our organization that wants to do something different or blossom and grow. A couple of my former assistants are now head coaches, and they're really good. And I had a small part in that. They were going to be head coaches anyway without me, but having that small part and being a reference that, they list is something that is very, very important to me. And I'm still tight with all of the people that have been in the program at Valley Christian or with Top Flight, and have gone on to do really good things on their own. And I think that's any entrepreneur that has a platform to help people get lifted up, you need to be able to do that. So Once I spread my rings, I knew what I wanted to do. A group of my friends and we decided to start Top Flight. And I say we because none of this is possible. You can't have 40 teams. You can't even have one team if you don't have a really strong group of people around. And so our initial, small group was all of us. It was like 4 or 5 of us that said, hey, let's do it. And we started off really slow. We started small. We didn't even have, like, when Top Flight Sports started, all we did was camps. Because, like I said, I was with that other organization for, a handful of years. But all we did was camps until it came like, hey, why don't you run the program and you coach? And then that's kind of when it got into mind. It was like, okay, well, now we have this branch called Top Flight Sports, because I always wanted to have academy. I wanted to have football, basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball, all of that. As I've grown older, you had to be ready to alter plans. Like, that's really difficult. We did do baseball and we did do basketball, but we just didn't have the infrastructure to do soccer and volleyball and other sports, because it's just hard. And I'll get to that in just a second, because you got to stick to what you're good at. But at any rate, so we started small, and I think we did a fall season. And I think we started off with like 3 teams, and then that next spring we ended up having 12 teams throughout that whole year. So actually, yeah, we had 13 teams our first year, but that first fall season, I think we had 2 or 3. And then, we started small, and then we started incrementally increasing. So in 2012, we had 13 teams. In 2013, we had 13 teams. But then in 2014, and that was when we started going on the girls' side more, because I was at Valley Christian, and that was something we needed, that equality. We went from 13 to 24 teams, and from 14 to 15. In 15 to 16, we went from 27 to 35. From 16 to 17, 35 to 39. In 18, we had 39. In 19, we had 40. And then this year, we were on pace to have about 40 as well. But it just exploded to a point where we didn't know that it was going to get to that. But early on, we had to start really, really small. And we built a team, but we built a team with family, with friends. Like, my mom still works the tryouts. Stephen Giles' mom still works the tryouts. Everybody's parents are involved with it, with the check-in process. Families that we now call family, because we've coached their kids for so long, are working at our stuff, and that's very, very important. And the people that have been down with it from day one, a lot of them are still there. The next thing is sticking to, including in the baby steps, sticking to what you're good at. Like, we wanted to do all these other things, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, you name it, but we needed to stick to what we were good at. And me in particular, I was good at the basketball, and most importantly, I knew how to kind of run business, because all those building blocks that I had early on. All right, how do you make money? Well, you got to get out there and hustle. Well, how do you interact with people? Well, you got to be able to talk to them and make them engage. And, what is going to be your return on the investment? So those were the things that I was doing. And I'm more intrigued with the business side of running a program rather than the actual coaching now. That just really intrigues me. But sticking to what you're good at, have a target that you want to reach and aim straight for that target. You don't need to be shooting that way, this way, right? So the next thing is, do what you need to do so you can do what you want to do. Top Flight has never been my sole income. It took, several years before we could actually get paid, because there was just so much. We were always reinvesting back into the infrastructure. I used to work for Felice Insurance. We've had Ron Felice on the podcast. He is my absolute idol. He allowed me to be an entrepreneur. He allowed me to work at his company. I worked there for 9 years, almost a decade, from college. And I was doing all of this while working there and earning a good living at the time. Like, it's because of the living that I earned there, I was able to actually do the things that I really liked. And I was able to sustain because I had a good regular job, right? I couldn't have sustained any of this if I was just doing Top Flight, because those club directors that do this, they know that there's not a whole, people may have, people have a misconception of what really comes in and what has to actually go out. There's so much money that's going out for renting gym facilities, for paying the coaches, to the insurance, to the tournaments, which are insane now on how much they cost. So I couldn't have done it, and I still don't do it to this day. I'm a full-time teacher at Valley Christian. I still run Top Flight. I also own a basketball training facility with my two best friends. So I have multiple streams of what's coming in, because if I was only doing one, you can't really live in this area. So do what you need to until you can eventually do what you want to do. I didn't want to, the last 3 or 4 years, I didn't want to work at Felice anymore because I just wasn't motivated to continue to do it. Now, financially, of course, I was motivated, but I wasn't passionate about it anymore like I was when I first started. And I had to do what I was passionate about. And then when my wife got a full-time nursing job, I was able to move on from that, take a teaching job, and not make as much, but at the same time, it freed me up to do more of the Top Flight stuff, which I wanted to do. And during that time I was working at Felice, I got my master's degree because you're setting up steps for later on. I don't know if I'm going to need this master's in education, but I'm going to do it just in case the opportunity came. And so I talk about not skipping steps a lot on this podcast. I didn't skip steps, and I was able to put that in a situation that could benefit me later on. So do as good as you can with something that helps you pay your bills while you're trying to build and progress. Because if you just go all in, the likelihood that if I had to go all in, I probably would have failed. If I didn't have support from, family and things like that, Top Flight would probably have failed. But since it hasn't been my only income, it allows me the flexibility to give the unseen hours or off hours when I'm off or at night. And this is several years ago before I had kids. I could work until, 12, 1, 2, 3, or go to bed a little bit early and wake up at, 4 in the morning and do the things that we needed to do. So I think that's very important for everybody to understand. Do what you need to do until you can eventually do what you want to do. What we really did well as a group is try to provide the best product, and not necessarily or just not chase the money. The money will come if you provide a good product. If your product is built on, fluff and really with no substance, and, people are going to recognize that at some point. That's one of the reasons why we've been successful, is we've never really cared about the money part. We always like to take care of the people that are involved with it. But at the end of the day, we got into this because we want to give back and we love kids. Like, I absolutely love every part of my day-to-day when I can interact with kids and help kids if they want to play basketball in college. If we had some small, small assistance with them getting to that level, that is everything, and it's just really important for us to stay authentic that way because, not a lot of people are that way, and that's okay, but also unfortunate at the same time. I guess the last piece I would say is I fully immerse myself in basketball. Outside of my regular job, I made time for all of these things. Being an official, running sports camps, being a JV coach, eventually becoming a varsity coach, getting education so I can be in the educational field where I really wanted to be. I would say to everybody, make sure you don't skip steps in any endeavor that you're trying to do. Be authentic and genuine. Tell people the truth, even when you're wrong. People will respect that, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've had success. I want to thank everybody that has supported Top Flight Sports, Top Flight Elite, Top Flight Baseball. The kids that we originally started mentoring are graduating from college. We've since diversified into a basketball training facility called Splash Lab, which came at the right time, but we were ready to pivot. COVID hit, we were ready to strike. And I would say just everybody be flexible, do what you enjoy to do. I love what I do every single day, and that is my hope for everybody, that they get to do what they love. Teaching, coaching, being around young people and inspiring them to hopefully be better. That's why we do this podcast. So everybody that has had a small part or a big part in Top Flight, I thank you so much. We wouldn't be here without you. My beautiful family, in-laws, everybody has really assisted to get to where we're at. I'm here to say that we're not done. There may be things that change. I still plan to run Top Flight. I still plan to be very active with that. But I also recognize that as you get older, priorities change. Kids come into the picture. That's very important. You might start to see other people, start to take more of a leadership role with a whole bunch of things. And I may be going on to the next thing at some point, but, no matter what, we're going to do it with integrity. And again, this is just really a thank you to everybody who supports what we do. I didn't really want to start a podcast. I didn't really want to share a whole bunch of information, but as I get older, if I can inspire somebody that is young or even old, that's what I'm here to do, because I'm inspired every single day by a whole bunch of people, and it gives me the motivation and the mentality to share more. So thank you guys for listening. Top Flight's 10-year anniversary. So many people and thousands of people and families have been benefited from our program, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. So there's my little rant. Sportrepreneur. It's in the lexicon. If you haven't heard it anywhere first, you heard it from me. So that's the story of Top Flight. And if anybody has any questions on how to go about it, I'm happy to help you. And you know how to reach out. Thank you.